Hi, welcome back or welcome to my channel. If you're new, my name is Laura. Hi, hello, welcome. Today we are actually going to do a tag video, and this tag was created by my soul sister Hayleigh, and I know myself, Hayleigh, and Kailee, Wesley are going to be doing this tag kind of in a collaboration together, and I'm so excited. This is going to be my second collab with both of them, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And then I know Hayleigh and myself are planning on doing the how many eyeshadows have we hit pan on again in December, I believe, maybe January. We haven't really fine-tuned the details, but I'm excited. This one is all about single eyeshadows. Now, Hayleigh did mention that she had another individual that after she kind of compiled her list of questions, she did a nice little search on the YouTubes and figured out that someone else had already done something very similar to this, 𝙇𝙤𝙤𝙨. If I can find their video, I will link them down in the description box. Hayleigh has a list of 12 questions, and I thought it would be kind of fun. I don't have any eye makeup on, don't know if you can tell. I do have eye primer on, and that's about it. But I thought maybe while we're talking about some of these products, I can just put some of the products on my eyeballs. That way you're watching something, well, it's not just like me yammering on. So the first question is, how many single/depotted shades do I have? And all together, all of my singles, like individually, either potted or in my Z palette, I have 173 single eyeshadows. That's a lot, I know. I even went a little further and I put percentage of my singles, or depotted, loose, liquid kind of eyeshadows. I have 34% of my collection is loose shadow in some capacity, whether it's in my giant book of eyeshadows, whether it is loose eyeshadows that are on the other side of me. 34%, 173 total. That's a lot. That is a lot of eyeshadows. Now, what brand do I typically purchase my singles from? It's kind of hard to say. I would say the majority of my eyeshadows are definitely Bare Minerals ones. So I'm going to go in with Bare Minerals Cream Soda just to kind of help start this eye look off, because I don't want to be yammering on for too long. So I definitely feel like I've purchased the most singles from Bare Minerals. But if we're talking about like pressed eyeshadows, I feel like I have definitely purchased the most from ColourPop. Not so much anymore. I've really strayed away after some of their business practices and then the lack of diversity in their products. I've really strayed away from using ColourPop eyeshadows and buying ColourPop eyeshadows. Now, the next question is, how do I like to store my singles? Now, you kind of saw I have this little container here. This is full of all my loose shadows. I believe I used to include my liquid shadows in this. Since relatively recently I've moved my liquid shadows elsewhere because I feel like they were getting neglected, lumped in with my loose shadows. But all in all, this beauty is how I keep my single depotted shades and just my single shadows in general. I have a whole video organizing this. It's a little tiny bit disheveled, like this corner closest to my head. I mean, honestly, that line of 9 shadows is very autumnal in my opinion. That is kind of all I want to wear right now this time of year. But I will not reach for this palette in a whole. You've seen, if you've been on my channel for any amount of time, the past few months, I have built my own singles palettes using some of these smaller shadow palettes. So that is kind of how I like to store them. But do I use it that way? No. Do I have more than one type of shade or more than one, do I reach and buy more of one type of shade than other colors? Yes, 100% yes. In here, I hope you can see, I feel like I have a very large slew of neutral orangey kind of shades. And since I have that large slew, oh gosh, I can't figure out where I want to put this. Since I have the large kind of slew of orangey shades, I am just going to go in with one of those orangey shades today. This is ColourPop in Frequency. This is in my Pan Those eyeshadows. So short answer, yes, I do feel like I have a lot of repetitive shades in this kind of mid-tone orangey kind of range. Now, lately, and more so than anything else, I feel like I really have a lot of greens. I feel like it doesn't look so much like that in here, But I have a lot of greens in this. And even in these loose shadows, predominantly a lot of them are like olive-y, like beautiful greens, like chartreuses and everything like that. So, and that's really what catches my eye now, is reaching for and like scrolling through and looking for more olive-y kind of tones. Now, do I need them? No. Do I want them all? Yes. The next question is, do I prefer single, like pressed singles or loose singles? Now, definitely pressed singles. I feel like they're just easier to work with. I feel like I can build these little 9-pan palettes much easier. However, if you asked me 10 years ago, it would have 100% been loose shadows. I used to go through loose shadows and reach for my loose shadows because I worked for Bare Minerals, and that's kind of like what they're known for, is loose shades. So I definitely feel like I have gone through a change in what I typically prefer in terms of pressed or not pressed. I am going to go in with one of my old school favorite eyeshadow colors that Bare Minerals made. This is called Shantung. It's just so pretty. It's so pretty. And I really don't know how this is going to go with the next shade that we're going to use, because I already know the next question. So the next question is, what is your favorite single shadow you own? So I think it kind of varies between category, like loose shadow, liquid shadow, or pressed shadow. So loose eyeshadows, I would say this one that I'm using now, which is so surprising because these are the kinds of tones that I don't really reach for all too often. But this used to be one of my, like, I had a look that I used to wear at Bare Minerals that I feel like really complemented my eye color. I do have like green eyes. They can change colors depending on what I pair with them. So this shade, and then I would pair a beautiful like orangey gold on the lid, and that was kind of like my signature look to make green and blue eyes pop. I feel like this kind of shade really brings the tones out in my eye color and also in blue eyes. So yes, this shade in particular, this is called Shantung. I don't know if Bare Minerals still sells this, but it was definitely one of my favorite shades of all time. And then my favorite eyeshadow single that I own has come into my collection relatively recently. It is this absolute beauty. This is Dahlia by Dandelions Company. This shade is so gorgeous. Oh, I'll swatch out Shantung too. I mean, you saw me put it on the lid. So Dahlia is this guy here. Shantung is that guy there. It's just, they're so pretty, and I flipping love those kinds of shades. I almost feel like it's cheating having such a new shade, because I mean, we all like to play with our new shades the most, right? Like I feel like human nature, we're just, if it's new, that's what we want to play with and reach for. But I've had this shade in my collection since, I want to say, April, June, and it is still so stunning. Like, that was minimal effort for basically maximum payoff. So it's not, I don't have a glitter glue on, it's just so pretty. And I feel like this look in general is gorgeous. What is my least favorite single shadow? So it's hard to say because I've decluttered so many single shadows or depotted shadows that I don't like. And I mean, obviously those are going to be the shades that I don't like, you know? So it's very difficult for me to kind of pinpoint. However, I think I was going to pick this black shade from my Natasha Denona liquid shadows. However, it's going to be like one of these though. So that is these guys here. This is MAC Blue Brown and MAC, what is this? Heritage Rouge, I believe. Yeah, Heritage Rouge. I'm going to use this one today because I feel like I did a look using the MAC Blue Brown pigment relatively recently. So you guys kind of saw what it was. I feel like this, oh my gosh, the shade is so similar to what I just said one of my favorite shades was. So this is that MAC Heritage Rouge, and this is Bare Minerals Shantung. It's just slightly more plummy, and I just do not like those kinds of shades. I would like to reach for a black eyeshadow more than I like these kind of plum tones, but it's here. We're going to use it. Yeah, so it's just something I don't really reach for. I don't really like these kinds of tones. And then the packaging on those, like the MAC pigments that aren't like the super, super large ones, I just think that they're pretty unfriendly and unwieldy to work with. They're hard to shake product out, and you can end up with a lot very, very quickly of those. So I just tend to not like that one in particular. So again, that is MAC Heritage Rouge in this kind of container. The next question is, do I have any tips for depotting shades? And the biggest tip that I can give you is patience. Just have so much patience. You will think, oh no, I can do this, it won't be a problem. And then you'll start depotting a shade and realize like halfway through, like sometimes you're in too deep almost, and it can be overwhelming. So I think the biggest tip is to just make sure your schedule is clear and make sure you have an abundant amount of patience when you're gonna depot something. Also, to note, it really depends on what kind of palette you are looking to depot, which is gonna wager a huge, it's gonna wager so much differences. If you're gonna depot something that's in cardboard packaging, that's gonna be immensely easier than something like a Morphe shadow or like a J-Cat single where it's in really hard plastic packaging. Now, cardboard's going to be easier because you can cut through it. It's so much easier to depot a cardboard package. Something like those 35 Morphe palettes where it's hard plastic, I would suggest just staying away unless you are like, you don't care how many shades you break or ruin. It's just sometimes it's not worth it to depot those Morphe shadows. In theory, you would want them to like kind of be in this, but I hope you can see like in some of these shades, like this guy here, this is B from the Morphe James Charles. Like that was a cardboard package and it still is broken. Same thing with that guy there. Some of these shades from the 35M are looking less than beautiful because they're just so soft. The pans, they are very, very malleable. So like this one in particular, this was from the Morphe 35M, and you can see it almost looks like the shape of a lemon or lime with like the pinched sides, because it was so difficult to kind of remove them because there's so much glue that they use to stick the shadows down in those plastic packaging. So honestly, when it comes to a plastic package, I recommend either one, you have an abundant amount of patience and you have a clear schedule for that day, or two, just don't do it and depot your cardboard packages. If you really want to go down the depotting route, cardboard packaging is definitely easier. Why do I depot shadows and do I regret doing it? So I depot shades. I don't do it often. I really just do it on palettes where I'm overwhelmed with the amount, which kind of seems silly because this palette is gigantic, and I mean it's about the same size as some of the other palettes that I depotted, or bigger than some of the palettes that I've depotted. But doing something like this where I can kind of pick and choose and then create, again, I can create and build my own kind of palette and color story, I like it so much more. I also loved depotting because I like to dupe palettes out quite often. And to me, it's easier to dupe a shade and kind of show you like, oh, this is my depot or my dupe of whatever it is. Whereas if I have like 8 different palettes in front of me to dupe one palette, I feel like it's a little overwhelming. So I personally like to depot because it helps me kind of concentrate my color stories and then not feel overwhelmed having like something like this where in my Pan Those eyeshadows, I was pulling a lot of my larger palettes and having them sit out on my desk, which just, it looks untidy. I don't like it. I don't like having like 6 large palettes out at one time. Yeah. Now, do I regret doing it? Yes and no. I really like having the flexibility of creating my own palette like this. However, when I talk about some of my eyeshadow palettes, it does get a little annoying, like having to find out what shades are from what. I do label all of them on the back. However, there are some times where maybe I've decluttered some shades that in a couple years I will actually like. But at that point, I can buy new shades. I'm not that worried about it. So yes, I thoroughly enjoy my depotting. Yes, I do regret it at times. Overall, no, I feel much better having these depotted shades, kind of getting to pick and choose what things I like and what things I don't, and curating this guy. Now, that's just something I really enjoy doing. Number 10 is, do you have any tips for not neglecting your single or depotted shades? Yes, that is to 1, dupe palettes out, 2, do a rotating build your own palette. So that's really how I've gotten a lot more use in my collection, is doing these build your own palettes every month now. It's really helped me spread my love throughout all of my collection. Now, is it easy to build your own palette using my loose shadows? No, because they're loose, they're not pressed. I can't just easily slap them into a palette like this and just be good to go kind of thing. So yes, build your own palette really helps me. Also, I do have a spreadsheet. I'm going to pull it up. So I know this isn't going to be for everyone, but I do keep a spreadsheet of all of my shadows, and I have a bar in here that says used. And if I have used that shadow in the year, I put an X next to it. That way I can kind of understand if I am reaching for my collection as a whole, if I'm only getting a certain number of my collection touched, and then I can reassess like next year. I have only been doing this kind of system for a year, so I'm definitely not like an expert. I am not a pro in being like, this is how you can love your whole collection. No, I do think that building focus palettes and then having a tally sheet, like on the back of this one, I have a tally sheet just of how many times I've used the Baby Yoda palette. As you can see, those 3 shades I had not touched. If you are craving a palette that's a new release, using some of these single and depotted shades to kind of dupe the vibes, maybe do a couple looks with the duped palette. That way you're touching more of the things that you think are new and innovative, but maybe you already have them in your collection kind of thing. Now, the next question is, if I had to choose to either keep all of your single depotted shades or keep all of your palettes, what would you choose and why? And Hayleigh, I am a little annoyed that you're making me do that. I honestly don't know. I don't know. I guess the question is, am I allowed to depot all of my palettes and then keep them? I like the only things that I'm like thinking of, I'm like my Safari palette, my Pride and Joy that I bought this year. If I had to get rid of her, I would want to cry. The Kaleidos palettes, I would cry if I got rid of them. But I also think like I would cry if I had to get rid of like my indie shadows that I purchased this year and my just my singles in general. Like if I had to get rid of like all of these and all of these, I would be so devastated. So I honestly don't know, and I feel like I'm cheating saying I just wouldn't get rid of anything. Ugh. If I could depot everything, I would keep my single and depotted shades. If I could not depot anything, I think I would keep my palettes. I think that's fair. Is it a little cheap? Yes. I wouldn't get rid of anything. That's a hard question. That's a very hard question. Let me know what you would do. Would you either keep everything and get rid of your singles or keep your singles and get rid of everything? I don't like that. I don't like that question. That question makes me very uncomfortable. And then the last question is, why do you like to purchase singles, like as a companion shades to make pre-made palettes more perfect for BYOPs or dupes, or just a better way to support a brand? I like to purchase singles because I feel like I don't have a lot of voids in my collection, and I really don't think I need palettes anymore. Right now, with the palette collection that I have, I don't feel like a palette adds value to my collection. I think that singles add more value to my collection. Now, as we can look at, do I need any more shades? No. I really don't need any more shades. I can mix and match. I can Franken shades. I think that I prefer buying singles that are just cool, like this shade here called Dahlia. It has such a cool flip to it. Like, it looks super green in some light, and then if I shift it a certain way, it almost can look peachy and like red. So I think that I like to purchase singles now more than I used to because it adds actual value to my collection. Now, if you look in here, I purchased a bunch of these ColourPop ones, these orangey tones last year, and a lot of them are the same, and they don't really add too much value because like this shade here versus this shade and this shade, they all look kind of similar. They're all going to look kind of similar on the eye, and they're not going to really do much difference. But other brands like Dandelions Company wear these kinds of shades, that other one, some of these lighter things. I like to support the brand itself because I feel like indie brands, while a lot of them are wonderful and beautiful, I don't think that they get as much notice in mainstream because, I mean, mainstream makeup is just mainstream. So I do like to support the indie shadows now. I don't really look to purchase from big mainstream brands or like really expensive brands. So it's a little mixture of like filling voids and supporting local, not even local, because like if I buy from Dandelions Company, I'm in Michigan and they're in Florida, so it's not really local to me. Glaminatrix is in Australia, so it's not really local to me again, but I like to support like a smaller brand that's actually doing some sweet work and really interesting things, whereas I feel like the mainstream palettes are just like the regurgitated version of palettes that have already existed. That is it. Let me know how you would answer some of these questions. Let me know if I answered similar to you. I hope you didn't mind that I kind of just slapped on my eyeshadow while doing this video. And speaking of that, I forgot to put an inner corner highlight on. So I'm just going to take this guy here. This is Bare Minerals Breathtaking. This was not a single. This was a depotted shade that I had in a duo, and then I repanned it. So we're just gonna tuck her, and yeah, that is it. We have now finished my look. We have finished the prompts, and that concludes this video. I hope you guys check out Hayleigh and Kailee's videos on this, and again, I hope you guys are staying healthy, staying sane, and staying safe, and I will catch you in my next video. Until then, bye!